Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
You know, I gotta wonder, why is it that we Americans keep pens around our homes? Pens that don't write, pens that are broken, these cheap Chinese pieces of junk that people give us with the names of companies on them, and we keep them because we think that they have some value. But when you go to grab one, they don't write. And what's the proof of that? Rich Scheben, what is the proof of that? When you're on the phone with someone, you say, hey, I'll tell you what, can you write this down? And they go, I'm looking for a pen that works. Oh, geez. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. USAPrepares.com. And there's a link to your instructors on the website, USAPREPARES.com. And we've got a telephone listen line, 701-719-0914. 701-719-0914. Sharon in Montana called us with that number, and it works. It's delayed. It's not live. It's delayed. And as soon as Zeno Radio gets us on live, I will give you the Zeno Radio number so you can return to listening live, or you can continue listening to 701-719-0914. If you'd like to call us today, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. And that's between the hours that we're live of 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And we are rebroadcast, tape delay, in many, many states, including KLID, AM 1340, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and others as well. And also on Republic Broadcasting and on YouTube, Ron Gibson's channel. I'm Vin Finelli. Rich Scheben's with us. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Thank you, Mr. Finelli. How are you this morning?
Frustrated.
Well, when you start out the show with the disposability and poor quality of American pens, it's pretty obvious
Chinese pens.
Well, it's in America, is what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, on American soil. Pens on American soil, yes.
Right. Basically, we're being groomed for these type of products. And when we basically outsource so many jobs and we export inflation to low-wage producing countries, basically that's what we get, because we've imported deflation, and quality of all products are going to go down because the profits for the very few at the very top of these organizations are going up. So get used to it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a word that, this is a $10 word. It was invented by a marginal, and I'm going to use the word in quotes, statesman, a marginal statesman by the name of George W. Bush. Maybe we should just say marginal and take off the word statesman. And he invented a word called misunderestimated. And he said that he was misunderestimated all of his life. And I was thinking about that word today, that it's called a Bushism. And when I think about trying to deal with a cryptocurrency company on the internet, Coinbase, anyone who is trying to imagine my level of frustration has misunderestimated my level of frustration. Now, I found a definition of what misunderestimated means. Okay, and here's the internet definition. It says nearly a decade after George W. Bush said misunderestimated in a speech. Philip Hensher, Hensher, called the term one of his most memorable additions to the language, and incidentally, an incidentally expressive one. It may be that we rather need a word to underestimate by mistake. So I guess the definition now of misunderestimated is underestimated by mistake. So anyone who is thinking about my level of frustration dealing with Coinbase and trying to get an account set up has misunderestimated my level of frustration. and you know, if you want to set up an account and you think you can do it in a day, forget it. It takes, well, they ask you one question. They ask you for your name. Then they ask you for your email address. Then they want to verify your email address. Then they ask you, you go page by page by page, but you really don't realize what they are going to ask you for until you get closer and closer to the end. They want a photo ID. They want a mobile telephone number. If you don't have a mobile phone, you are really in trouble because you have to verify who you are multiple ways. So without a cell phone, you have a huge problem. If you don't have a camera that can send them instantly a picture right then and there on demand, their demand, you are not going to get an account with these guys. And if you can't get an account, you can't. It's difficult to transact in Bitcoins, Litecoins, Ether coins. It's really darn near impossible. What I'm telling you is there's a whole new level of frustration that we are going to experience with online transactions. Why? And I want to say this so that, you know, the three-letter agencies don't show up at my farm in the next 5 minutes. But let's say you wanted to go visit someone and talk about your frustration. Okay? If I were dealing with Macy's or Sears, I at least know where they are. I could go to a branch outlet of Sears called a Sears store. I could go to a mall, find a Sears store, and ask for the store manager and say, you know what, I'm really frustrated. I'm frustrated for these 11 reasons. And here they are. And what can you do about it? Okay? I could go to Macy's and do the same thing. But when you're dealing with online banking, and you're dealing with online exchanges, where are they? Where do you go? Who's the head knocker? You know, who's the guy who you say, hey, this is nuts. I want you to fix it. Who do you complain to? You complain to the government? I don't think that's going to work. You know, yesterday, I set up a bank account. Physically, I went to the bank, set up an account. And I said, would you help me, please? Would you create an online banking account? Because I wanted them to use their system rather than me go across the internet to create it. I'm certainly capable of creating it. Well, it was set up wrong. I got home. It didn't work. And it was one mouse click wrong by the person who set it up. It wasn't intentional, but it was one mouse click wrong. And that the account had to be deleted, and a new account had to be set up because of one mouse click. And the person that did it, I called him up when I got home, and I said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm having trouble with this account, and I think I know what's wrong. And the person on the other end said, yeah, we're getting ready to close, but I'll see if I can get this done before we close. And that was accomplished. The account was fixed. But one mouse click away. Now, fortunately, I knew who to call. I knew the person's name. I just talked to them. I had their phone number. But how are you going to do that with one of these cyber accounts? How are you going to do that? Just try to find their phone number. That's a real challenge all in itself, if you can find the phone number. Typically what you do is you submit a request online. So if you're having a problem, you've got to submit a request online. You know, it's kind of like SentryTel, in a way. SentryTel, when the internet goes down, I'm talking about down. It's not working at all. And I call the tech support number for SentryTel. Well, I have to enter my phone number. Wait, really? I have to enter my phone number. Don't they already have it? So, a phone company needs me to enter my phone number. Don't they have caller ID? Aren't they the guys that provide caller ID? Am I confused? Anyway, so they call CenturyTel, and ultimately, after pushing a whole bunch of buttons, they'll say, we have online support. We can help you online. Really? That's why I'm calling, because I don't have the internet, because it's down again. So, class, what I'm telling you is I believe that we are going to experience a whole new level of frustration. It's going to be ramped up by a factor, not by a few percent, by maybe twice, 3, 5, 10 times. I really feel it. And back to George W. Bush, the guy who claims he's been misunderestimated all of his life. If you're thinking about my level of frustration, I think you've misunderestimated it. I'm furious. Rich, I don't normally go into rants this long, but I need to.
No, that's my job. Well, let me comment on what you just said there, Vince, real quick.
Please.
Between robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, it's going to get worse. I talked about how we are in a fascist state here in America, where only 4 to 6% of people make their primary income from being self-employed. So that being said, as the big companies merge and envelop the small companies, and as government regulations increase and the technocracy increases, the small and medium-sized companies will continue to not be able to compete, especially as minimum wage laws go up, with the large oligarchies, which are protected by the government, the mainstream media, and basically just the powers that be. And that's why they want to control the narrative, the memes, and the talking points all the time.
Yeah,
so
they want to control
it's going to get more
cars.
frustrating.
Yeah, they want to control our cars. They want to have license plate readers all over the highways, byways, cities, and the locations that you drive. I mean, they want more and more information about us. And the amazing thing is, it's being paid for by us. And we can say, not through tax dollars, through theft. Through theft. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. And Rich Sheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. OffGridMontana.com. Rich Sheben, we were discussing off air an article about a 19-year-old who mercilessly beat this person up, a handicapped person, and pretty much got off darn near scot-free. Would you want to talk about that?
Well, it's part of the politically correct regimen that we live in today. And we've gotten to the point where it doesn't matter what you do, what you say. It only matters what group you're from. And I have so many articles on my computer here, Vince. I'm trying to find the right one. And but I remember reading it.
Okay.
And
all right. Well, I think I have it.
But I go ahead and give the audience a brief.
Okay. All right.
And we'll discuss it. But
it's on ZeroHedge.com. Chicago woman who filmed brutal kidnapping and torture of a disabled teen sentenced to community service. A 19-year-old woman who live streamed the racially charged kidnapping, torture, and mutilation of a mentally disabled teen was given 200 hours of community service and 4 years of probation on Friday. Now, this article was written on December 10th, 2017. Brittany Herring Covington, who went by Herring on social media before her arrest, and Covington, in recent reports, avoided a possible 33-year prison sentence on multiple counts, including a hate crime, aggravated battery, and aggravated kidnapping, a charge which was dropped along with several others as part of a plea agreement. Cook County Circuit Judge William Hooks handed down the slap on the wrist to Covington, who pleaded guilty to a hate crime, aggravated battery, and intimidation, telling the teen that he could have sent her to prison, but told her, "I'm not sure that you'd be coming out any better." Now, what happened was the brutal attack took place in early January after 4 black Chicago teens kidnapped a mentally disabled white teen and held him captive for nearly 2 days, binding his hands and feet with duct tape and gagging him with a sock before using a knife to cut and stab the victim while laughing, shouting racial slurs, and issuing death threats. In one segment, the live stream attacked, one of the females can be seen laughing as she punches the victim. At another point, one of the male attackers wraps a cord around the victim's neck while he groaned in pain. And in another, a male approaches the victim with a knife and asks the others, "Should I shank his body part?" And then it goes into profanity. This is what happened to this white man at the hands of 4 blacks. Now, that's what the article says. It actually goes into a little more description.
And don't forget the point at the end of that article. I remember that there was a white male, who got 15 years for a hate crime for leaving bacon in a mosque. So
that's right.
It's pretty obvious.
Well, there's a little bit more to it. Let me mention this because this is a critical point too. The Judge William Hooks of Cook County, Illinois, says, "Don't mess this up." Okay, he said to Covington, and Hooks, the judge, the guy in the black robe, the guy who sits on a raised platform, the guy who has a gavel and can command that the police in the courtroom do whatever he wants them to do. Hooks, the judge, is notably the first African American president of Chicago's Federal Bar Association, past president of the Cook County Bar Association, and a member of the Muslim Bar Association of Chicago. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Wow. Let's talk about this a little bit more when we come back. Chris Sheehan's with us, offgridmontana.com. Yeah, so we're talking about these four teenage attackers that attacked this mentally handicapped white person and young man. And I'm just going to read this, but I have to change some of the words. And here are some of the quotes. The brutal attack took place in early January after 4 black Chicago teens kidnapped a mentally disabled white teen, held him captive for nearly 2 days, binding his hands and feet with duct tape, gagging him with a sock before using a knife to cut and stab the victim while laughing and shouting racial slurs and issuing death threats. In one segment of the live streamed attack, one of the females can be seen laughing as she punches the victim. At another point, one of the male attackers wraps a cord around the victim's neck while he groaned in pain. In another, a male approaches the victim with a knife and asks the others, should I shank his blank? Okay? And here's some of the other quotes. Blank Donald Trump. Blank white people. There's going to be a murder. Pop, pop, pop. We gonna put this blank in the trunk. Put a brick on the gas like, pistol whip his blank, fool. Those are the quotes. Then the video went viral, and immediately after the teens were arrested, the Chicago Police Department said initially it was not racially motivated. Really? It's not racially motivated. When you look at those quotes that I just read, this is not racially motivated. Blank Donald Trump. Blank white people. There's going to be a murder. Pop, pop, pop. We gonna put this blank in the trunk. Put a brick on the gas like, Pistol whip his blank. Fool. That's what it said. Okay. And by the way, whatever happened to English? We gonna put this blank in the trunk. Put a brick on the gas like, pistol whip his blank. Fool. Whatever happened to English? This is outrageous. And the Chicago Police Department does not think this is racially motivated. The judge sentences this gal who streamed this with community service, 200 hours of community service, and 4 years of probation. What the heck is community service? What does that mean? Does that mean sweeping the sidewalk? What does it mean? Does it mean pruning the flower beds? Does it mean mopping the floors? What does it mean? And then you got to wonder this girl's in tears. This poor black girl, Brittany Herring Covington, who live streamed this, is in tears. She's actually crying. It was really funny while this handicapped white guy was being stabbed, poked, choked, gagged, duct taped. That's all fun and games. But now that she's facing 200 hours of community service, now that's really something worth crying about.
Vince, it's my turn to rant now.
Okay. Yeah, now
all
we're
right.
hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Civil rights policies, they were all designed to ensure that all Americans should be judged on a basis of individual merit. But the powers that be are doing everything to divide us by race and gender. When you look at race and gender measurements from any barometer, from when Barack Obama came into office and compared to when he left, we're as far as we've ever been. And too many people are falling for this divisive trick. Civil rights were inherently individual rights, defined as a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And these rights are supposed to be equally held under law. The amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and by the way, when you listen to someone on the left we all know that the Democrats have been hijacked by the globalists, okay? They might mention the word Constitution, but just as a politically correct buzzword or wordsmithing, they'd hardly ever mention the Bill of Rights, because the first 10 amendments, especially the first two, which is like freedom of speech and the ability to protect ourselves and be armed, they don't want to mention that. So that's just a little FYI there that I've noticed that people on the left hardly ever mention the Bill of Rights. They'll mention the Constitution just because it sounds good. But amendments to the Constitution and Bill of Rights guarantee that no state shall make or enforce any law that should abridge the privileges or immunities of any citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection under the laws. But when groups are given special privilege through corporate structure, government entitlement, life, liberty, property, and even due process is being erased for many of us. You know, we've talked about the kill the cop meme that came from the left. Certain so-called leaders who'd never practiced what they preach was on podiums talking about kill the cops. Well, the lawyers, the judges, bankers, and of course the politicians, but especially lawyers, judges, and bankers, are the mid-level management liaisons between the globalists and the people. They have let us down. They have basically said the little guy has no rights, unless it's the bottom 93% where they absolutely say we need to have a different set of rules, laws, and accountability, pardon me, based on everything that's different. Not for equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, prosperity, inclusiveness, accountability, all these politically correct buzzwords, but to use as a tool, as a weapon to divide the American people by. And that's what's happening. Now, we got to look at a lot of these. I'm gonna dovetail so we don't beat a dead horse on this one article, but I want to dovetail what's happening in America today. The so-called media, the mainstream media, we can't have short memories here. Remember, there was a child porn scandal on Facebook. Remember, Facebook says that killing all whites that was posted is not hate speech. The Huffington Post was defending articles where authors don't exist. The word to, T-O-O, is sexist. CNN says if you use the term hard worker, it's racist. And how about just the mainstream media in general? You're having thousands of hoax sites of fake news, misleading information, and 50 versions of the same story. So now people don't know what's credible anymore, and that's part of the plan. It's just like with what Roy Moore is going through. I have an article here. It says cop accuser interview unsupported claims by Moore. This one woman, basically, the media found out, the new media found out that Moore was involved in convicting her brother. I sent you a late article this morning, Vince, about how that the movie star, the actress of Wonder Woman, was seen in a porn video. Or what they have the technology to do, and I've talked about this on the radio before, is with video, and they've had this technology for audio. They can take, because they've done this. If you go on my website, offgridmontana.com, you'll notice that I was putting a lot of my, about every 5 or 10 shows on my web page so people can hear them. And the powers that be were using my voice audibly and changing what I said. Basically changing words, and even deleting words and putting new words in. And they have the ability now, and this is on Drudge, where AI is so sophisticated, you can take someone's face or head, put it on a porn star, put it on a bank robber, put it on a child molester. You can basically, and if you get hold of someone's DNA because someone went to the hospital for a procedure, you can put them at a crime scene. The artificial intelligence sophistication in the wrong hands, which is in the hands of the globalists, can do so much damage. So things do not appear as they always are. Just like CNN last week, with the WikiLeaks documents and the date changes. It's gotten to the point where nothing is accurate and everything is surreal, and they're grooming you for a very gruesome life. Here's another article here. Former FBI official, halting immigration is not who we are, but Americans must adjust to terrorism. We've gotten to the point where political correctness, we're so drunk on the Kool-Aid of political correctness, we can't even see straight. I swear to God, we ought to take the term litmus test, eliminate it from the dictionary, and basically add in the word sobriety test, because we're so drunk on it. Everything, whether it be CNN, ABC, MSNBC, it doesn't matter where in the mainstream media, they are just trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. And they have no credibility at all. And we have to call them on it, folks. We've gotten to the point where it's pretty obvious that the powers that be are trying to distract, dumb down, and divide us by groups. But the distractions, how often do people talk about our economy? The consumer debt is growing so much faster than GDP, and debt is climbing probably 8 times faster than wages. We're losing ground. We're losing freedoms and liberties. We are literally getting to the point where there's so many excuses used. We're upshifting in stupidity and incompetence as an alibi. And we have to call a spade and say it like it is, man.
So you leave me like 10 seconds to respond.
After the break.
Yeah, I've got some comments about that. First-hand comments about exactly what you were talking about. We'll be right back. Rich Sheben's with us. I'm Vin Finelli. Rich Sheben's with us. Rich, okay, here we go. Here's my take on it. Back in 1993, I was notified that the NBC Today Show was interested in doing an interview about the technology that I built for a local school district in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And they were fascinated, and they had their advanced technology personality come down to Virginia with a camera crew and audio crew and so forth to video this technology and interview me and one other person. Actually, maybe 3 other people, but one of them was key, the superintendent of schools. And what they did was very interesting. They had one camera. They didn't have 2 cameras. They had one camera because they came from New York City to do this shoot. And they didn't want to pack lots and lots of equipment, so they brought one camera and one microphone and a recorder, video and audio recorder. And here's how they did it. They took, and this was technology that I built for a school system. And it was pretty neat. It really was advanced at the time. So what they did was they had they had 2 chairs where I was facing the superintendent. He was facing me. But they had one camera. So what they did was they placed the camera behind me. And you could see my back, my shoulder, my head from the back. But you could see him from the front because he was facing me and I was facing him. And they asked him all the questions. One question after the next, after the next, after the next. And then when he was done answering all of his questions, they switched the camera so that the camera was behind him. And then I was asked all the questions. One after the next, after the next, after the next. And what happened back in New York when they took all this video back with them, they cut, pasted, edited, stitched the video all together and made a video that they showed on the NBC Today show. Now, let me give you an example. This is not what happened, but let me give you an example of what could have happened. Not by NBC, but in this kind of a scenario where people can be made to say things that they didn't actually say. Because now the interviewer was not on camera at this time. The question is asked, and you just see the response from the person being interviewed. And in my case, the response would be, so Vinny, how do you feel about such and such? And I respond with my response, my face, my words, my voice being shown on the screen that the viewers would see. So let me make something up. This is all made up. So, Mr. Finelli, how long do you keep that server, that file server running in the back room to support all of these computers, these hundreds of computers? How long is that running? And I say, all the time. It's running all the time. It's all the time. My response is all the time. Then later on, what could be stitched in is the interviewer could say, well, how often do you feel like killing Mr. So-and-so? Mm-hmm. All the time. And then could that be brought in front of a court? Could it be shown to the jury? We have the video. He says all the time. And he did say all the time.
Yeah.
And that was in 1993.
Yeah.
Now,
Katie Couric did the same thing in that gun control documentary a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They can switch anything around. And remind me after the break, I'm going to go out and feed some animals. Remind me after the break about this sexual harassment video someone sent me from Canada with Tom Brady starring in it. Just go ahead and ask me, remind me when we get back, and I want to address what they can do today.
Okay. We'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Rich Sheapen's going to feed the animals. I'm going to check on how much power we have being generated by our solar system to see if we can finish the rest of the broadcast. I think we can. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Sheapen's with us. I'm Vin Finelli. And I just checked on the solar array. It's working just great. Generating over 4,000 watts. It's enough to run the dishwasher, the refrigeration equipment, the heating systems, the lights, do the broadcast. It's working just great. That's because it's a sunny day. Now, if it was a cloudy day, I don't think I'd be saying the same thing. Rich Sheapen, were we able to feed the animals?
Got it. I did a little running, but I just got here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Vince, can I do part
take
two of
advantage
my
of it.
rant?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And the reason why I'm dovetailing all this stuff with Roy Moore is to show how easy it is to point the finger. And I want to remind all of us that, and I'm not just speaking for myself because I've never known anybody that isn't an imperfect sinner. No one is an angel. But Roy Moore does talk about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and that's what we need at this particular point. We need to decentralize. We need to give the people a voice again, because the little person, when I say the little person, you know I'm talking about the bottom 93% of America. And I'm going to give you another example here on how the powers that be want to distract, dumb down, and divide us by groups, lowering the bars of standards and expectations, especially for getting and keeping a job. So things get so bad that the people come to the government or the powers that be and say, help me fix this. Here's an article, Madness, British Girl Scouts to allow adult transgenders to share toilets and beds with girls. I'm not making this up, okay? And this was on investmentwatchblog.com, and it basically says how it's a boon for pedophiles, and that girl guides, apparently what they call it in the UK, are aged from 15 to 25, and this means that adult biological men will share toilets, changing rooms, and beds with little girls. I am not paraphrasing what I'm saying here because I'm going through the article. And they're saying that it could cause anxiety. You think? Members are allowed to use facilities of the gender they self-identify as. So we're in an era that's beyond 1984 Orwellian. We truly are in a politically correct Twilight Zone episode, really made with virtual reality. And this is why AI is going to take over reality and make everything look different. Up, down, winter, summer, everything is going to be made to fool our minds. And if we don't raise the bars of standards and expectations, especially for getting and keeping a job, things are going to continue to get worse. So we are all imperfect sinners, and people have to remember that. But when people talk specifically, not just about the Constitution, but the Bill of Rights, which you very rarely hear anybody on the left saying because they want to get rid of free speech. They want to get rid of our guns. Now, keep in mind, every time, when you look at a lot of history, when we lose our guns and the right to protect ourselves, that's when genocide occurs. That's when governments go wild, and they've killed hundreds of millions of people over just the last 100 years. So we need to start speaking up. We need to stop blaming everybody under the sun and start reading, researching, and sharing information with other people, because silence equals consent. And that just makes us more and more of the incorporated or divided states of America, or divided groups of America. So, Vince, I didn't give you much time to respond because of the break last time, so I'll let you have some time. I appreciate you letting me rant. Thank you.
Well, let me respond with this. This is from BBC News, BBC.com. Okay? It's the BBC news site. And what they're saying is that wolf whistling in London is now a police matter. Now, I got to tell you that sometimes I have a really pretty wife. I really do. And I met my wife in 4th grade, and she's just a wonderful lady. And every once in a while, I'll be at the farm here, and I'll whistle at her, kind of like, like a guy might whistle at a pretty girl. Well, I didn't think anything of it. Heck, I didn't realize it was a hate crime. I'm just whistling at my beautiful wife, Mrs. Finelli. And I don't do it all the time, But, I might be leaving the farm, or she might be in the garden or something, and I might be pulling in the truck. Look out the window, there she is, with her back toward me, and I might whistle. Like, I really appreciate this lady, and whistle. Well, heck, in London, it is becoming a hate crime to do that. Wow. Now, maybe I'm confused. But I think that if I were walking down the street and a girl whistled at me, and it would never happen, but because I have a radio face, but if a girl whistled at me and like, wow, there's a handsome guy, I wouldn't say, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call 911. That was a hate crime. I would say, wow, I'd be kind of flattered. Am I confused, Rich Scheben, about this? Do you think that whistling at a girl is a hate crime?
Pardon me. This is why we need to have a situation where we have to increase our memories a little bit, write things down. And I'm going to answer it this way. Let's remember a lot of the things that's happened with men and women over the years. A Democrat congressman saying Kellyanne Conway looks familiar on her knees when she was in the Oval Office on the sofa. Joy Behar from The View calling Bill Clinton rape victims tramps. Normalizing pedophilia, New York Times on record saying it's not a crime and defending NAMBLA. I think that's an acronym for the North American Man-Boy Love Association or something like that. Look at the definition of marriage. We have the divorce rate almost 75% now. It's not just same-sex, but now in America they're marrying children, pets, farm animals, trees, computers, inanimate objects. Now, for all this male privilege that you see out there, combat deaths, 99.9% male. Work mortality, 94% male. Homicides, 76% male. Suicides, 75% male. Isn't it wonderful to have all this male privilege? Folks, again, this is a tool to divide the American people by groups. It's a divide and conquer strategy which has the consequences of lowering the bars of standards and expectations, and not just for getting and keeping a job, but for everything. And this is why the powers that be use the term identity politics. This is their home run pitch. And this is why when I say we stand for principle, we should have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody based on truth. And if someone else gets away with it because they're from a certain group or has lower consequences for it, we should all do it. And that's what standing for principle is. You have to be willing to be hated for saying things and doing things that somebody else gets away with. And that's why they have so much race baiting, gender baiting, sex baiting, religion baiting, ideology and generation baiting as their MO on on the mainstream media. We have to call it for what it is, because when you lower the bars of standards and expectations, and I'm blue in the face saying this, I've been saying this for years, you're insulting the work ethic, the ability, and the intelligence of all these people shoved into these groups. What does this do? It degrades and disrespects every, especially minority, stuck in these groups. It eliminates synergy. It's a divide and conquer strategy. You never empower a nation, a group, or an individual by lowering the bars of standards and expectations. All this does is protect the elites. It's meant to make us submissive. It's meant to break your will. It's meant to call you an extremist, controversial, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, conspiracy theory, et cetera, et cetera. And then what they do is they run everything, protect everything by groups. That's their MO. But for anybody who brings this to light, even if you are a conservative female, they demonize, discredit, and delegitimize you through all mediums. And that's why the fake news, that term doesn't even do it justice. It's way worse than fake news. The people are bought and paid for. And this is why the mainstream media, especially in late-night talk shows, likes to use satire and banter. Because they want to destroy America by rewarding mediocrity. And if you don't laugh at the jokes that they do, you're, again, a racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when America is destroyed from within because we've rewarded mediocrity for decade after decade after generation after generation. Ingenuity, productivity, innovation, knowledge, it doesn't mean anything anymore. When you can't use hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, and criteria of that like to make yourself more successful, to give yourself a shot, a chance at survival, then America's gone. And this is why the left-right paradigm, you need to get it out of your heads. It is irrelevant. It's only 5%. Ideology is a small part of it. It's the aristocracy versus the serfs, and they can do everything possible to make sure we're divided. All right, Vince, I'm going to give you the opportunity to comment on that after the break, buddy.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. Rich Sheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. Rich Scheben used the word misogynist. Let me spell it. MISOGYNIST. We use that word a lot here at USA Prepares. And so, for those who would like the definition of misogynist, it's a person who dislikes, despises, or is strongly prejudiced against women. Okay? So it's a person who dislikes, despises, or is strongly prejudiced against women. That's the definition, according to the Internet, of misogynist. MISOGYNIST. I thought we'd get that definition out of the way before I continue with something that is also in the news that I think dovetails with what you're saying. Now, in France, dairy farmers are killing themselves, suicide. It's all part of the big problem, where we are surrounded by 360 degrees of attacks, assaults. And here is a story, New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com. I don't very often go to New York Times. But here's a story about a dairy farmer. He kept 66 cows, small farm, at a thriving estate in southern Brittany. But falling milk prices, let me say it a different way, falling milk prices, accumulating debts, depression, and worries about his health in middle age became too much to bear. Now, middle age. He's 46. That doesn't seem very old to me. I'm 65. So at just 46 years old, Mr. Gavault shot himself in the heart in a grove behind his house on a cold December day last year. It was a place that he loved, near the fields that he loved, explained his sister Marie, who said she was very close to him, but did not see his suicide coming. The death of this man was part of an epidemic of suicides among French farmers and rural families. And public health officials and researchers are trying to grapple with this and figure out what's going on. Farmers are particularly at risk because, by the nature of their work, which can be isolating, financially precarious, and physically demanding. For farmers who do not have children to help with the work and eventually take over, the burden is that much greater. Falling milk prices and meat have also added to the debts and stress in recent years. So that's, okay. The most recent statistics made public in 2016 by France's Public Health Institute show that 985 farmers killed themselves from the years 2007 to 2011 at a suicide rate 22% higher than that of the general population. It's a big problem. It is really a big problem. Now, that's France. Here's an article from Iowa. Iowa Now, the University of Iowa. UIOWA.edu. Long after the 80s farm crisis, farm workers still take their own lives at a high rate. It goes on to say, the number of suicides among farmers and farm workers in the United States has remained stubbornly high since the end of the 1980s farm crisis, much higher than workers in many other industries, according to a new study from the University of Iowa. Farmers are killing themselves, and the reason is poor access to quality health care, isolation, financial stress, And farmers have a disproportionately high risk of suicide. Okay? I can understand that. As a farmer, I can't understand killing oneself. However, I can understand the stresses. I can understand the demands. I can understand the non-stop, endless problems that we have. There's not one day that someone in our family doesn't say, here's something that failed and we have to fix it like right now. As a matter of fact, it's almost like when I come and check on the farm during the broadcast, during the commercial breaks like we're having right now, I hear, here's the latest crisis. It's nonstop. We'll be right back. George will be with you in just a minute. We've got George in New Hampshire, USA Preparedness Instructor. Welcome, George.
Hi, Vincent. And hello,
Hey.
Rich. Rich, just tell me one thing. Let me know when it's my time to rant, okay?
Right now.
I love it. Thanks, George. Time is so short, buddy. You got to say it like it is.
Oh, no. Hey, there's got to be somebody to still believe sanity is actually normal, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you, whether you like Winston Churchill or you didn't, one thing you had to say, he was a very good orator. And he said something one time that I think is apropos to the times we live in. Do you mind if I just say it? It's only a paragraph. It's not very long.
He was quite the statesman. Quite unlike everyone we have today in Congress and the Senate, right? Do we have anyone who compares to a Winston Churchill in the use of the English language? I don't think so.
Well, he said this, though. He said, if you will not fight for right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory is sure and not too costly, you may come to a moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves.
Well said.
Yeah, it's very apropos, and I can understand. I will say this, that I've discovered one thing. Now, all of us are pretty much sons of immigrants in terms of somewhere in our family tree. People had to walk away from lives they had, established ways, family and community connections, and basically risk everything on a fairly perilous travel course across an ocean, you know, to an uncertain destiny. And the reason we're here today is because they didn't give up. Now, they had it very hard when they got here. There wasn't much of anything waiting for them except whatever their two hands and their minds and their strengths could basically carve out for themselves. Now, I've seen it where we don't give up. Now, I'm not saying we don't get discouraged. I'm not saying we don't get downtrodden or we don't get whatnot. But you know and I know we're going against the trends. I think you gentlemen more than I, in the sense that you're rejecting the easy government remuneration, basically just go along, get along attitude, and you'll get your little stipend. And what you're doing is you're basically continuing that frontier mentality where, you know, you're struggling against the elements, you're struggling against adversities to basically make a living for your families and put a roof over your head, right?
Well, sure. And I'll tell you, George, I want to make it very clear that whether it be Vince or myself and everybody I know in the Liberty Movement or however you want to label us, I don't know one person who's anti-government, because you mentioned the word government in that. And I think a lot of us are about logical, common sense government, not too overspending government, too big government, too corrupt, manipulative government, foreign-owned, foreign-run government. We're anti that type of stuff. But the little people have been forgotten, and this is one of the reasons why I do a lot of this stuff. You know, like Vince was talking about farmers and deaths and suicide. I read an article, I remember a few days ago, saying that Monsanto is strong-arming farmers to use controversial chemicals. And the number one cause of deaths in America, which I've said many times over the air, for people 50 and under, is drug overdose. This is a nation in despair. So what if we got together and really saw what the so-called left or the globalists are doing to Americans, spending billions of dollars to distract them down and divide the people? They're not coming up with solutions. They're trying to basically delegitimize and discredit and demonize every individual who's for the Bill of Rights and Constitution. What if the bottom 93 got together and said no more GMOs, no more hormone steroids, antibiotics, no more vaccines, no more wars, no more de-engineering, no more pedophilia? The same rules, laws, accountability for everybody, including hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications to get a job. No more fluoride, chlorine, 200 other chemicals in our water. What if we said yes to adult mutual consensual sex instead of the pedophilia running rampant? What if we got together and actually spoke up using common sense and logic that benefits the masses? See, it's just the aristocracy versus the serfs, and the serfs are growing because the middle class is being deleted.
Well, I've got to agree with you. And as you were saying this, I was leaning back in the studio chair, and I was thinking, if those things could be accomplished that you mentioned, Rich Scheben, we could all go on vacation. USA Prepares could take a couple years off. Because we wouldn't have the strife. We wouldn't have the endless... let me share this with you guys, George and Rich. So Coinbase, and this actually ties to what you're saying. Coinbase, during not this last break, but the one before, I thought, let me just see if I've got my account set up. I've only been doing this for a couple days, trying to get this account working. I've been unsuccessful because they keep asking me for more and more information. Well, they're trying to verify who I am, and I can't get that done. However, every time I go to log in to Coinbase, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, I haven't done anything. Okay, I've not sold or had a transaction in a year, over a year. So all I want to do is get this account, so that if I decide to do something, I can. Well, it ties to a cell phone. Every time I log in, it sends a message to a cell phone. I don't have a cell phone, so I have to use someone else's. Actually, I have to have them tell me I got a message. They keep telling me that they get these messages every time I try to log in to see if my account is working. Not to use my account, just to see if it's working. What I'm saying is you absolutely, positively, to join the current crypto marketplace, you have to have a cell phone, which means that you are then being tracked. Why? Because of the extreme volatility of the cryptocurrencies. If you want to play this game, if you want to get in this marketplace, if you want to know what's happening to your wherewithal, meaning whatever you've saved, earned, generated, and if it's in cryptocurrencies, if you want to keep track of it, you have to respond with your cell phone saying, yeah, I got the message on the cell phone. Here I am. Yeah, I'm using my computer. The cell phone's right next to me. I'm good to go. I can verify who I am because my cell phone is next to me. I click on the cell phone. I can now use my computer right next to the cell phone. What I'm saying is this system is now going to track your every step. If you think that you can be involved in cryptocurrencies and not have those who want to know where you are at every moment, you're mistaken. This is unbelievable. Well, and they've created this enormous bubble. Rich, even in the last 4 days, you and I talked off the air about Litecoin, Litecoin. It was at $98. Today, it's just under $400 in 4 days. You can probably earn the same return in less than 1 minute that you would receive in a whole year from your bank account interest if you had Litecoin. I haven't done the actual math, but it's pretty darn close.
That's if you bought it low, you sold it high and not held on to it. And I still believe that if you have a password or a username, hacking, phishing, it's all possible. And it's an infancy industry. It's in speculation.
Yeah.
I don't think the anonymity is there like people think, and
No.
we're going to find out when the IRS
it's not.
sends.
Rich,
the IRS,
they, in order for me to have an account, I had to have one of two things. This is an account for an exchange called Coinbase. I either had to have a camera on my computer, which I do not have, or a cell phone with a camera, which I do not have. So I had to borrow a cell phone to make this happen. Now, that's kind of unusual for someone to have to borrow a cell phone to make this happen. But they wanted a picture of me, a picture, so that it could be verified that I'm me. Now, maybe the problem is, and I sent him a picture of my license, my Missouri license. Well, maybe the problem is my eyes were closed on the picture of my license. I don't know, but I can't seem to get this account activated with their criteria. Now, it's one of a couple things. Either their system's flawed, or the demand for activation of accounts is so high they can't cope with it. That could be because in 4 days, Litecoin has gone up from less than $100 to $400, just under $400. This thing is taken off, and I don't think there's any stopping it. I think Miles was absolutely, positively correct. Now, Miles was wrong in one area. He said that Litecoin would double, and this was a couple weeks ago, it would double by Christmas. It doubled in a couple days. So he was absolutely right that it would take off. But by how much it took off, I mean, to say it would double in less than a month was unbelievable. How could that be? It went up by 4 times as much in 4 days.
Vince, I'll tell you something. One thing about anything that's speculative or hedging, it's all a guess. I'm reading articles where it could be a government operation to try to get more people in, get people out of. I mean, we talked about margin, that people are literally selling their houses, their silver, their gold to buy cryptocurrencies right now. And I don't see this ending positively for most Americans.
George, I'd love to hear your comments when we come back. George in New Hampshire's with us. Rich Sheben's with us. I'm Ben Finelli. This is USA Prepares. I was ranting about how we are going to be tied to smartphones and how the spying will escalate because of our need to be tied to our electronic cryptocurrencies, and how the government will be able to track where we are every moment of the day because we'll be tied to our finances, which will be tied to our cell phones. George, did you have a comment or thoughts on that? I believe that's accurate, what I just said.
Well, yes. I've noticed now, it kind of is like a circle I've noticed, is that, as American citizens, we can't have a Swiss bank account, correct? Right?
Okay.
You know how the Swiss very jealously guarded their privacy? They would hold anyone's money, and they wouldn't release it or give any information. Well, something strange happened where they did. They finally made it so that they gave the names over of Americans who were holding accounts, which was unknown in Swiss banking history that they'd ever do it. But they only did it for the Americans. And you know how and you'll say, what do the Swiss have to do with what we're talking about? Well, I noticed something else, too. Roman Polanski, he raped a young 13-year-old girl. He fled to France. French wouldn't extradite him. Now, this is all going to come around in a circle. But he went to receive an award or give a speech in Switzerland, and he was detained on the warrant outstanding from the United States. Now, again, Switzerland being neutral, jealously guarding their neutrality and basically keeping to themselves. Now they're bending rules that are long-standing traditions, and what it tells me is the Swiss must have been, The Swiss must have been aware or made aware of what currency trends were going and how all the gold they were holding and monies and all that, if they wanted to be part of this greater system where it was going to go to like in the ether, like an electronic currency where there won't be any more cash being traded amongst us, which is a totalitarian regime's a dream to be able to know every single transaction. And then we go biblical. It says, no man, he forces men, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to all have to take the mark, or they would not be allowed to buy and sell. It's all coming together where, in other words, it's like a circle that's just forming up around us, and you're realizing that they're chastising you because you don't have a cell phone, you don't have a camera on your computer, and you're dealing in something, a cryptocurrency, that they want to get their claws into because they don't want anyone to escape this financial system they're setting up where they're going to regulate you to death, basically. That's what I see.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't disagree, George.
I totally agree.
Now we're in a situation when you're hedging and speculating. There's two words that especially is appropriate for the bottom 93%. When you chase all these different new innovations, new ideas, new basically economic situations where you can try to hit a home run and put more money in your bank account, there's two words that come into mind: solvency and liquidity. Because, you can chase silver, you can chase gold, you can chase land, you can chase cryptocurrencies, you can chase all this different stuff, and there's many different ways to try to keep your net worth up and to invest in the future. But for the people that don't have a lot, solvency runs thin after a while when you keep chasing, and liquidity turns into a big issue. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not saying that cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin is absolutely a tulip bulb situation. I'm saying it could be. And it's going to be very interesting to see because the IRS has claimed that a very small percentage of profits were reported compared to the profit-taking on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Well, it's going to be very interesting to see if the IRS actually catches these people. And that's going to tell us if anonymity is valid. Because if anonymity is not valid, I think that's going to really turn off a lot of people and go in this direction.
Very, very well put, Rich Scheben. George, thanks so much. But I believe Miles is right. Either you can get on board with cryptocurrencies or you'll be run over. I really believe it. Buy them. You can either join it, embrace it, and use it, because what's left? The fraud, the Federal Reserve accounting in a dollar? Rich Scheben, George, thank you so much for being with us.